This episode discusses extreme survival situations, death, and psychological distress without graphic detail and with respect for the people involved. There is a phenomenon survivors describe in the same language across different places and generations. They will tell you they were alone, exhausted, and close to the edge. Then they will say something that makes no sense on paper. They were not alone anymore. A presence arrived, calm, watchful, close enough to feel like a person walking beside them. Some call it a guardian, some call it an angel, some call it an ancestor. Some refuse those words and call it the mind under pressure. But the report, the raw experience, is strangely consistent. People describe a companion they cannot see, sometimes cannot fully hear, but can sense as clearly as a shadow at their shoulder. They call it the third man factor, the felt presence that appears when survival becomes impossible. If you have ever been alone in the dark and felt watched, you already understand the seed of this. The difference is that in third man stories, the presence does not always feel predatory. Often it feels helpful. It feels like someone has arrived to keep you moving, to keep you breathing, to keep you from choosing the easiest exit. Survivors describe it as guidance without panic, a voice without a mouth, a companion without footsteps. The third man factor shows up in the same kinds of places: polar journeys, mountains, deserts, open ocean, long distance, endurance, places where the body is starving, freezing, dehydrated, and sleep deprived, places where the horizon becomes a wall. It also shows up in isolation states, like solitary confinement or prolonged trauma, where the mind is hungry for social contact and the nervous system is running on emergency power. When people report it, they often describe three things, repeating. First, the presence is calm. Second, the presence feels close, like a person at arm's length, sometimes behind, sometimes beside. Third, the presence is purposeful. It does not feel random. It feels like it has arrived to do one job: get you through the next hour, the next step, the next ridge, the next wave, the next breath. One of the most famous examples comes from Ernest Shackleton's ordeal, describing the brutal final march across South Georgia. The details vary in retellings, but the core idea is the same. A small group moving through unbearable conditions felt as if an extra companion walked with them, not seen, not counted, but felt. That matters because it shows how the third man enters our collective imagination, not as a campfire monster, but as a survival companion. Even when accounts are debated or reshaped by later memory, the reason they spread is emotional truth. People recognize the feeling. Even if they've never been on polar ice, they know what it means to feel watched by life itself when everything gets quiet and your body starts bargaining. The third man is not always a comfort story, though. Sometimes survivors describe it as simply present, neutral, like an observer. Sometimes they feel judged by it. Sometimes they feel it is testing them. But in many reports, the presence is described as helpful, and that is what makes it so haunting. A predator fits our expectations. A helper does not. It raises uncomfortable questions. Why would the mind create comfort in a place built to kill you? If you want the cleanest modern entry point, writers have collected these reports across different environments. One recurring theme is that more than one person can sometimes report the same sense of someone else being there. That does not mean a being was or was not present, but the phenomenon can feel shared. And that is the detail that makes people lean toward the supernatural explanation, because shared feeling can look like shared reality. Now, picture the scene that appears in many accounts. You are walking, but your walking is mechanical. Your mouth is dry. Your thoughts are slow. You are too tired to panic properly. The world narrows into a corridor. Step, breath, step. Somewhere inside that corridor, a presence arrives, and the world widens again. Not visually. The mind suddenly feels accompanied, as if the loneliness has been cut open by a friend. Survivors often describe the presence as politely close. It does not demand attention. It does not announce itself with fireworks. It simply becomes obvious, like realizing someone has entered a room behind you. It can feel so certain that people will turn their head. They will check their peripheral vision. They will search for a shadow. They will feel embarrassed by the attempt, yet physically unable to dismiss what their body insists is true. Sometimes the presence is described like a voice, not always audible, not always words, but guidance. Keep going, not yet, this way. It can feel like a coach with no face. Sometimes it feels like clarity, like your own thoughts have been cleaned of fear, leaving only instruction. That's one reason science explanations matter. Because our brains can generate voice-like guidance under stress, especially when sleep deprivation and physiological pressure reshape perception. The supernatural interpretation is simple. A guardian spirit arrives, an angel arrives, an ancestor arrives. The veil thins in places close to death, and something comes to escort you. You may have heard versions of this in religious testimony, near-death experiences, or cultural storytelling. It says you were not alone at your weakest. It says something valued you enough to stand beside you. The scientific interpretation is also strong, and it starts with something basic. We are social animals. Our brains constantly model other people, even when no one is present. You can feel it in a quiet house. Under extreme stress, that system can misfire or overperform. The brain may create a social companion model because the presence of an ally is a survival advantage. There is also a known experience category, sometimes called felt presence, where someone strongly senses another being nearby without seeing it. This can occur in sleep paralysis, extreme fatigue, grief, neurological changes, and altered states. It does not mean madness. It can happen to healthy people in extreme conditions. If the nervous system is overwhelmed, perception can become less about accuracy and more about survival. The mind chooses what helps you endure. Add hypothermia, dehydration, starvation, and pain, and you get a perfect storm. The brain is starved, hormones are surging, sleep is broken, time distortion increases. In that state, perception becomes a strange blend of reality and emergency imagination. This is why the third man factor tends to appear in the same environments. It is not random. It is linked to edges, physiological edges, emotional edges, and social edges. There is another uncomfortable layer. Social support improves survival odds. People endure longer when they feel they are not alone. Even imagined social support can reduce panic. Panic burns energy and decision quality. If the mind can manufacture calm by creating a companion that may be adaptive, it may be the mind doing the most instinctive thing possible, refusing to die alone, not because it is poetic, but because it is practical. But then comes the question that keeps this phenomenon alive. Why does the presence often feel separate? Why does it feel like someone else? Why does it sometimes give guidance the survivor claims they would not have chosen? Why does it sometimes feel like it knows the terrain? Science can answer some of this through dissociation, split attention, and predictive processing. But the subjective realism remains the hook. It feels external. A lot of survivors describe the presence as emotionally clean. No panic, no hysteria, just direction. That detail matters because it separates it from ordinary fear, hallucination. It doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like focus. And that is why many people interpret it as protective. The presence is not there to terrify you. It is there to keep you aligned with the narrow path that leads back to life, even if life feels far away. The third man factor is a shape. It appears in different climates, different countries, different languages, and the same words come back. I wasn't alone. Someone was with me. It kept me going. Now we lean into the folklore question. Could this be the modern version of old ways? Guardian angels, spirit guides, ancestor interventions. In older worlds, those stories were not entertainment. They were survival in religious language. A helper at the edge of death is a universal. It explains why we survive when we shouldn't. The third man factor can be both a psychological mechanism and a spiritually interpreted experience. Picture a climber alone on a white ridge. Wind erases footprints behind them, Their thoughts slow down. They are negotiating with their own body, and the body is losing. Then the presence arrives. It is not loud. It simply becomes true. A companion beside them. The loneliness breaks, and the next step becomes possible. That is the message of the third man factor. It appears when the next step is the only step that matters. Some survivors say they felt comforted after. Others say they felt disturbed. Because if your mind can create a person in the emptiness, what else can it create? And if the presence was not your mind, then what was it? That question follows people long after the storm ends. That is why these accounts stay alive. They are not only about survival, they are about reality. They force you to ask where the border is between perception and something beyond perception. When the world becomes unbearable, something arrives to help them endure it. Whether it was the brain protecting itself or a presence answering back, the effect is the same. It kept them moving. It kept them alive. It left them with one thought that is both comforting and terrifying. I was not alone.